You think you have a gut feeling. Maybe it hit you at midnight when you opened the fridge, and your hand reached for cheese before your brain finished the sentence about your diet. Maybe it was nausea before a meeting, or that quiet no when someone offered you a job that looked perfect on paper. We have a whole vocabulary for this. Trust your gut, listen to your body, follow your instinct. And the picture in your head is simple. One you inside one skull, one private inner voice that knows the truth before the spreadsheet does. But here's the question this video is actually about. What if that feeling is not coming from one voice at all? What if it is a vote count from a coalition you never agreed to join? To see why that is not science fiction, we have to start with a basic question. What is a gut feeling in the first place? In plain terms, it is your brain noticing signals from inside your body. Pressure, hunger, nausea, that tight chest before bad news. Scientists call that interoception, which just means sensing your own insides. So far, so normal. Your brain reads the body and you feel something. The wrong assumption is the next step. The step where you treat those signals as one unified you speaking with one agenda. Because your body is not one organism running one program, it is a crowded city. In 2016, 3 researchers named Ron Sender, Shai Fuchs, and Ron Milo at the Weizmann Institute of Science in Israel decided to actually count cells instead of repeating a number everyone had heard in TED Talks. For decades, biology classes repeated that bacteria in your body outnumber your own cells 10 to 1. That ratio came from a rough estimate in the early 1970s that got photocopied into textbooks and never checked. Sender and his colleagues rebuilt the math from scratch, using modern measurements of how many bacteria live per gram of stool and how many human cells sit in blood, organs, and tissue. For a reference adult around 70 kilograms, they landed on roughly 30 trillion human cells and roughly 38 trillion bacterial cells. Here is the fact: you are not outnumbered 10 to 1, you are outnumbered about 1.3 to 1, still outnumbered, just not by the cartoon version. And before you picture yourself as a bacteria costume with a human mask on, remember mass, all those microbes together weigh on the order of 0.2 of a kilogram. You are still mostly you by weight, just not by head count. Most of the bacteria live in your colon, which is basically a fermentation district at the end of the assembly line. Most of your human cells are red blood cells, which means when you donate blood, you are literally exporting a huge fraction of your personal census. Sender's team also noted something ridiculous. The 2 counts are so close that a single bathroom trip can temporarily flip which side is ahead for the day. Democracy is messy. So when you trust your gut, you are not consulting one wise advisor. You are consulting a metropolis. But head count is only half the story because your gut also has its own nervous system. Wrapped through the wall of your intestines is a network of neurons often called the second brain. Roughly 200 to 500 million nerve cells. That is tiny compared with your skull brain, but enormous compared with your spinal cord. Those neurons can coordinate digestion, move food along, and react to local chemistry without waiting for a memo from headquarters. So you already contain a semi-autonomous wiring closet in your abdomen. The question is how it talks to the boss upstairs. The main hotline is the vagus nerve, cranial nerve 10. It runs from the brainstem down through the chest and into the gut, and it works in both directions. Think of it less like a suggestion box and more like a live cable carrying status updates and commands between gut and brain. Now we need one more piece of machinery before the experiments make sense: the stress system. When you are threatened, your brain and adrenal glands ramp up a hormone cascade called the HPA axis, which is just the body's alarm wiring for cortisol and fight-or-flight chemistry. For a long time, scientists treated that alarm as a brain-only story. Then, in 2004, a team led by Nobuyuki Sudo at Kyushu University in Japan ran an experiment that sounds rude but was elegant. They raised mice in a completely sterile environment so the animals had no gut bacteria at all. Germ-free mice. Then they stressed those mice the way you stress lab mice, which is restraint, holding them still for a short period. Normal mice with ordinary gut flora mounted a stress response. The germ-free mice spiked harder, more stress hormone, Louder alarm for the same insult. That was the first clear demonstration that postnatal gut colonization helps program how aggressively your stress axis fires. Sudo's group then colonized germ-free mice with single bacterial strains. Bifidobacterium infantis in early life could normalize the exaggerated response. Some pathogens pushed it the wrong way, same mouse hardware, different microbial software, different panic settings. So your gut residents are not passive tourists. They help tune the volume knob on stress before you consciously decide you are stressed. Fast forward to 2011. John Cryan and colleagues at University College Cork in Ireland, including Javier Bravo, fed mice a probiotic strain called Lactobacillus rhamnosus, JB1. Those mice behaved less anxious on standard tests. Their brains showed changes in GABA receptor patterns, which matters because GABA is one of the brain's main brake pedals. Interesting, not yet proof of a hotline. So the team cut the vagus nerve in one group of mice. Vagotomy, sever the cable. The probiotics' calming effects vanished. Same bacteria, same food, no wire, no message. Here is the fact. At least for that strain in mice, the gut-to-brain influence needed the vagus nerve to work. Other labs found similar patterns. Bifidobacterium longum reduced anxiety-like behavior in a colitis model, but not in vagotomized mice. This is not proof that yogurt controls your personality. It is proof that the root exists and that microbes can ride it. Which brings us to chemistry, because your gut is also a factory. You have probably heard that serotonin is a mood molecule in the brain. True in part. But roughly 90% of the serotonin in your body is made in the gut by specialized intestinal cells called enterochromaffin cells. That gut serotonin is not the same thing as happiness in your skull. Peripheral serotonin mostly handles gut motility and local signaling. The brain makes and uses its own serotonin behind the blood-brain barrier. Still, the gut output matters because it is enormous. In 2015, Elaine H. Sayo's group at Caltech, with first author Jessica Yano, showed that germ-free mice produced about 60% less gut serotonin than mice with normal microbes. When those mice were recolonized with the right spore-forming bacteria, the serotonin production came back. Here is the fact. Indigenous gut microbes help regulate how much serotonin your gut manufactures. Your inner factory has suppliers. Do humans show up in this story, or is it all mice and restraint clamps? Human trials are smaller and messier, but they exist. In 2013, Kirsten Tillisch at UCLA and colleagues gave healthy women a fermented milk product with probiotics and scanned their brains with fMRI while they looked at emotional faces. The probiotic group showed altered activity in brain regions that integrate gut signals and emotion, including the insula. Change the gut input, and you can measure a different brain readout. In 2015, Kristen Schmidt in Oxford ran a prebiotic trial, not a probiotic pill, but fiber that feeds gut bacteria. 3 weeks of BGOS galactulogosaccharides lowered the morning cortisol spike and shifted attention away from negative faces compared with placebo. That is not a miracle cure. Sample sizes were modest. Strains matter. Your microbiome is personal chaos. No one responsible is telling you to buy a supplement and delete your therapist. But the direction is consistent. Tweaking gut ecology can nudge stress chemistry and emotional processing in healthy humans. Now the fun hypothesis that makes midnight pizza feel like politics. In 2014, Joe Alcock, Carlo Meli, and Athena Actipes published a review in Bioessays asking an impolite question. Do gut microbes manipulate what you crave? Their argument is evolutionary. Different species in your gut grow best on different nutrients: fiber fermenters, sugar specialists, fat lovers. If a microbe can nudge you toward the food it needs through the vagus nerve, or taste changes, or mood chemicals, it gains fitness even if you gain weight. That paper is a framework, not a courtroom verdict. Correlation is everywhere. Proof that your pizza craving is a microbial conspiracy is not. But we know parasites can hijack behavior in extreme cases. Toxoplasma gondii can make infected rodents less afraid of cat urine, which is horrifying and convenient if you are a parasite that needs to reach a cat. Your gut flora are not toxoplasma, still the principal lands. Host behavior is biologically hackable. So when you trust your gut about the third slice, you might be hearing from you, or from a faction that ferments best on pepperoni. Which brings us back to where we started. The feeling was real, the tightness before the interview, the pull toward the fridge, the no that saved you from a bad offer. Real does not mean pure. Interoception is your brain reading body state. Body state includes trillions of voters with their own appetites and their own stress settings. You are not a monarch receiving divine instinct. You are a coalition trying to agree on lunch. And the strangest part is you never felt the election happening. You just felt the result and called it you. If you're still likely wrong about sleep and time and plastic, and the noise inside your own skull subscribed to likely wrong, we will keep asking the questions you did not know you had. This video is education, not medical or mental health advice. Talk to a clinician before changing diet or supplements, especially if you manage anxiety or depression.